also, I'll step out of my role as a facilitator of this workshop and step into my shoes as Christophe the farmer. And just to describe what I've done on my property, and because I've had a long and various experience in markets, and having started so long ago, I've got still battle scars of what I went through, and I would have loved to have a tool, the one that we're going to create today, to help me and answer some questions which frankly I grappled with and I didn't understand. A lot of them have been mentioned already, so I'll be quick. And I'm not as prepared as Jack, so I don't have slides. So roughly as a timeline, we started, and when I say we, it's me and my lovely wife Sylvie. We started in 2016. The trigger was the question, the children saying, "Mom, Dad, are we destroying the planet with all that methane?" So that was the question from the kids. And we were like, "Oh, no, I think, not too sure." So that was a question, and so that started us to think, all right, what's our carbon footprint? Remember, that was a long time before that tool from ECHA existed, so at the time it was really difficult to actually understand. But when we got the results, it was a bit of an oh my god moment. That's a lot. Oh, by the way, for context, we have on Queensland scale, tiny property, very tiny. We've got 750 hectares and run about, at that time, about 150 heads of cattle. And now a lot less. I'll go into that. So there we started calculating our carbon footprint, and we said, should we try to be carbon neutral? Would that make the kids happy and the planet happy? So carbon neutral, question mark, no clue. 2017, drought in Queensland. Well, in our neck of the woods anyway. So at that time, we ran a mixed breeding and backgrounding cattle. So in drought, the first thing you do is you kick your backgrounding cattle because they're low margin anyway. I don't care, I don't want them, and you just keep your core breeders. So we destocked in 2006, still asking those questions. So destocked to about probably 50 heads out of the 150, so massively destocked. And then we started in 18, drought passed. And so we were still asking those questions. And when we destocked, we said, our carbon footprint, because we lost 2/3 of our cattle, is going to be a lot less. Could we possibly stay at that level? Right? But if we stay at that level, how the hell are we going to make money? Can we not? No idea. So in 18, when the drought broke, small but pretty intense, when the drought broke, we said, should we restock? So one question that we asked was do we restock? What do we do? Should we? Shouldn't we? Do we have any hope of making money? So we started reading about all that. If you soil in particular, was saying, well, if we destock and our pastures are better, our breeding will be better, our calving percentage will be a lot better, our profitability will be better. Can we make that work? So it was just about soil heads. We started asking questions about soil heads. But then we said, maybe it'll work, but we still didn't have the scale. And we were just about to clear another about 100 hectares. So we were asking the question, should we clear for more scale? Because if we're going to not restock to the same level per hectare, but we still need to make money, are we going to, if we have more scale, should we or not? And that's when that was around 19. So there was another question was, do we clear these 100 hectares that we were talking about? Or is there a combo of not clear, really improve the hell out of your soil, have a really good breeding operation with only 50 head that could make you the same amount of money that we had with 150, but backgrounding the margin is at first usage and destroy your land, as opposed to having the same amount of money with less stock but much better soil and In 2018-19, we then stumbled across the fact that, and we were still looking at whether we could, out of all that, be carbon neutral, so trying to reduce our carbon. So we started to think about sequestration then, and we stumbled upon the avoided clearing method, which rewards you for not clearing carbon. So we said, well, if we don't clear, we get carbon dollars instead. But how much carbon dollars do we need? Will that be enough on a low stocking rate, grade soil, to make the same amount of money or before relying on the carbon dollars? So what we said is, okay, if we push, we have the cost of pushing, we have the cost of maintaining clear, we've got the cost of establishing the pasture, you've got to buy the cattle as well. So that's a ton of money. Whether we could get that carbon money straight away and doesn't cost us anything. So straight away you can see that going through that process of trying to improve our natural capital, make money, and benefit from environmental markets, which at the time were just like, you could not find anyone who would know what avoided clearing was or method was. It was just like literally picking up the 170 pages of law and just going, painful at night after a day of work in the paddock. Right. So if I had a tool then, I'd say, can you please summarize that information for me so that I know exactly what I'm in for without having to read all those things? Now, things have changed, but that's what we had to do at the time. So we made the decision in 19 that was a possible scenario. Much reduced stock, don't clear, rely on your carbon money, and improve your soil. We didn't think about soil carbon at the time. So that's when we made the decision and we applied for our avoided clearing project, which we got in about 21, yeah, got that registered. So it was just on our own trying to register an avoided clearing project. It took us months of questions and exchange with the regulator. Remember that avoided clearing is a quite confidential method. At the time, there was only 12 projects registered on avoided clearing. I think there's about 15 these days, so it's not a very well-known method. Even the regulator don't know what they're doing. Oh, sorry, we were very inexperienced in their own method. But that's when we finally, in 21, got our avoided clearing project declared. Yes! In the meantime, protecting the land and being carbon neutral had led us to think about biodiversity. And we discovered the Land Restoration Fund that would pay us more for if we tagged a biodiversity project on top of our carbon credits. So we said, we'll go for that. So we talked to the LRF and they said, yeah, but you know that to be eligible for a biodiversity credit under the LRF, you must not have started your avoided clearing project. And we said, shit, backpedal. Fortunately, that happened literally a couple of weeks before our project was to be declared. So we went back to the regulator and said, can we please stop the process, don't declare, so that we can have the LRF. So that was put on hold at the moment for a time until we got the NRF application to get our biodiversity on top of a carbon credit project that was already approved but should not have been started. And yes, and we got our NRF project in 22 approved, and I'll go further. In the meantime, talking about soil health, we started thinking about soil carbon. So we started the registration of the soil carbon project at that time, which by the time we had the NRF done, we had our soil carbon project registered as well. And that was an interesting project in itself as well, all doing that by ourselves. So we had soil carbon project, but immediately the question was, when do we sample? And 21 was a very good year. So we said, so the question for us was sampling or no sampling? And the cost of sampling, mind you, it was $6,000. So it's not a decision you take very easily. And there was another decision that we had to make in all that, both for the AC project and the SOC project, is do we go on our own or do we use a carbon service provider and a group approve or a green card? That was a big question. And interestingly, we didn't. Well, we initially had the solid carbon project declared by AgriProof, so I forgot that was SOC 1. And then we didn't like AgriProof, so we cancelled the project and we re-registered it under our name. Fortunately, we knew a little bit better what we were doing now, so it was easier. Right. So SOC 2 was finally declared in 22, and we had the question: should we sample or not? And it was a really good year, so we said no, not sample. So we had to wait. So sampling, we waited until September 23 to actually do the sampling. So we waited almost 2 years from the very beginning when we started thinking about SOC to do our sampling, which we've done in September 23. We had our baseline sampling for SOC. And in the meantime, the really annoying thing is that you're not allowed to do. So we started thinking about soil health about then. But before we discovered that you're not allowed to have your activities started before your project is declared, so we had to hold off doing anything to improve our soil for a couple of years until SOC 2 was declared, which was really annoying. So we started, and we said, if we were going to sample later, we'd better not start to improve our soil, but we couldn't help ourselves, so we actually started improving from here. So we probably lost a little bit by doing the sampling a year after that. We've already started improving our own situation because we had stuff it. What matters for us is to improve our soil a lot more than gaming for a few carbon credits. So we still started the activities related to soil improvement here.
And so what were your stock numbers at this time?
We hadn't restocked, so well, a little bit.
Yeah.
So at that time, about there, we went to 60 breeders.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what the results were. Are we still making money or not? Compared to the 150, which included probably 60, 70 backgrounding steers, which, by the way, I don't recommend because they're mad if you buy them from somebody else. Anyway, I wouldn't go back there for different reasons. Where was I? In the meantime, we had we got the NRF project, which was great. Just to give you a few figures. Oh, sorry. When we decided, where did we decided to not push? Somewhere there, we decided to not push. Basically, the decision we made is to say, okay, if we push, it's going to cost us that much, right? And the cattle prices were that, and low at the time, very low, and the carbon prices were 57, right? So we said, we'd make a ton more money out of carbon than cattle. That's why we made the decision to go for carbon and not cattle. Now, a couple of years later, carbon prices are there and cattle prices are there. So we go, in hindsight, we would have made the same decision. It was the right decision. It would have been silly to continue, the cycle of clearing, etc. We're not making as much out of carbon as we thought we would. But that's life. And we probably, anyway, it would have been balanced out as a decision, but we don't regret the decision to have started that crazy journey. So we got the NRF. So to give you an example, the NRF pays us $93 for our carbon credits, which a portion of that, about $30, is used to do our biodiversity project, and we keep the rest. So basically, the government's paying us $30 to improve our land and remove lantana and stop erosion and do all that, and we still have our carbon credit money, which we sell to the Queensland government, which cancels them, and therefore they're not going to pollute. So we sell to a non-polluter at a very good price, very, very good price, so basically about $60, and we get $30 per carbon credit to improve our land. Can anyone think of a better deal? No, it's the deal made in heaven.
So
that's the land restoration fund, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
that's
not me. Sorry.
So that's,
Yeah.
so that's per hectare per annum.
That's 30. It's $30 per ACU.
Yeah.
Right. And our avoiding clearing project, where is it? Avoiding clearing is a really low yield method, especially on our land, which is it generates, I think, about 4 carbon credits, 4 IQs per hectare per year. Compared to plantings, the figures that Jack was mentioning about 16, so it's not a high yield use, or it's not a high yield method, but there's nothing to do. You don't have the cost of plantings, you don't have the cost of doing your soil improvements. It's basically do nothing, just don't clear.
So basically, the only hidden cost you had was the $6,000 to get the sample done.
Hang on.
I'll
I'll come to that. You know, it takes more to make me open my wallet. There will be costs associated with audits in the future for that. So there will be costs. But so far, so the baseline sampling, actually, somebody mentioned grants and you had to sign up. They wanted to make you sign up for something.
25 years.
Talking about not actually
illness
grant, that was a company that wanted you
The
to
company.
sign. Yeah.
We found that the University of Tasmania, I think, had a free carbon sampling program if you registered with them. The only thing that you had to do is to give them their data, because of course they're interested into their soil data, but they paid for the carbon sampling. So it's cool, $6,000, come here and do my sampling, please. So we did that for free. So my point is, if you are across what's happening, you can get opportunities like that. And of course, I rang my 2 neighbors and get into that program immediately. So we're in 23, we've done the baseline sampling, we've got our IQs, we're doing our regeneration project for free. Every time I hear the brush cutter cutting some lantana, yes, that's so good, and for free. And you should see the difference. Our riparian areas were totally covered in lantana, and now you can see through them. You can see the other paddock through it. It's just, every time I look at that, I'm just like, yes. Because it's stuff that you want to do, but I've never had the time or the money to do it.
This methodology is not relevant for down here, is it? It's a Queensland.
The LRF.
Yeah, because
Absolutely. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
So you screwed with Queensland.
Yeah. This is only Queensland.
We want to push for it in New South Wales. We
But-
need an LRF in New South
Yeah.
Wales.
but then
And
the
Victoria.
land clearing. So you
Avoided clearing?
the avoided.
No,
clearing.
it's national.
But Crockett
it's-
can't just go out and say, I'm not going to clear my bush, give me some money for it. You had.
It's a certain rainfall threshold, I think, so you've got to be above.
No, avoided
But
clearing.
in Queensland, you're allowed to clear your 100 hectares.
Yes.
You had, Crockett can't just go clear his 100 hectares.
That's Queensland.
Correct.
It's Queensland.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which is no. It's not Queensland.
I think in northern New South Wales as well, but it's unique up there.
Well, in Queensland, you've got what we call blue and white areas. On your property, you've got a map where some parts are blue, and you're not allowed to clear them, right? So that, and some parts are white, and you're allowed to clear them if you want. Now, the method, the avoided clearing, only applies where you can actually clear your right. Yeah, because I could have cleared it before. So basically, they pay you to renounce your rights to clear. They don't color it blue, but they pay you to renounce your right to clear. So I don't know how it happens in New South
So
Wales.
if you was to sell your property tomorrow to a different person, are they able to clear that paddock, or is that on the title that it's meant to be cleared?
No, because there's you have an obligation to the CER to maintain that carbon for 25 years. So they can't clear it. They can in 25 years, but no. It's a good. We ask ourselves that question. Another question that you have to grapple with is permanence. Do we go for 25 years? That was an easy decision. Yes, because we have no intention of moving, so easy. But do we go for 100 years? And we said, I'm not sure whether the kids would like to be encumbered by that, so we went for 25 years. It costed us 20% of our IQs, because if you have a 100 years permanence period, you get 20% more IQs. So.
And so you said your stock were going to a carbon neutral sale, but you were selling your accus.
Such a good question. So, such a good question. In that first tranche of accus, and then I'll talk to you about the dollar side as well. In that first tranche of accus that you got from our avoided clearing project, we got about 2,400 accus back in just after 22, so they're tax-free. Well, they're considered agricultural income, not tax-free. We got about 2,400. We sold 1,500 to the Queensland government for RF, and we kept the rest for our own carbon neutrality. So I've got a stock of about 900 accus for when I want to sell carbon neutral cattle. So when I go to that market and somebody tells me, I'll pay you 10 cents, but you offset, you give me the accus to make your cattle carbon neutral, I'll take them for that 900 accus stock that I've got.
So you broke that figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But can you only do that once? Like, how many cattle can you sell with that 900 accus?
Another very good question. Back to the calculator that Matt didn't like. All that, remember that we were asking whether we should be carbon neutral. And carbon neutral has two sides. It has a side of whether you're certified carbon neutral, and you could put a very nice little logo on your product. And it's the reality side. Are you really, right? And they're two different things. So that was another question: is do we certify ourselves carbon neutral or not? And I said, well, until somebody, it does cost money. So my answer was, until somebody's paying me for my carbon neutral little logo, I'm not going to do it, right? When somebody's ready, then I'll certify myself carbon neutral, because I know I am. So I am, but I'm not certified, which is a big difference. You see what I mean? Right?
But that still didn't answer my question about how many times can you sell cattle against that 900?
Only once.
Right. So how many cattle will that equate to?
That's where we were in the calculator. It depends how effective you are. Roughly, a cattle is about 1.5 ton per year.
So not many cattle.
But you could
So
sell
not
10
many.
cattle and say they're carbon neutral.
I could
Another
sell.
40 are not.
Yeah, exactly. I can sell some cattle that would be carbon neutral until I've exhausted my 900 accus. But remember, by then my SOC project will have started yielding some carbon, and that was only the first tranche of avoided clearing. I can claim accus regularly on that.
So you knew which project's going to be the next kicker? Sorry.
My soil carbon project.
Your soil carbon one.
In 5 years from now.
And what about your biodiversity one? What's that doing? Is that just helping the biodiversity one?
Oh, biodiversity is just those accus that I've sold to them.
Increasing the value of the accus.
It increases the value of my accus, and it pays me for an improvement.
Yeah, right. So that's still the 2,400 accus, but they're just worth more because you've got an overlaying biodiversity.
Totally.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have the LRF premium, I would have kept the whole lot for carbon neutrality.
But even without the LRF, there is a broker, Tasman, and there are others that RFM access that can have a premium for biodiversity, on your accus.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that 35 to 75 differential.
That's
So
a lot.
Sorry, Roger.
That's a lot.
Once upon a time, and it goes back to your timeline here when you had I've got a soil carbon project I'm looking at. Oh, but this biodiversity project looks better than because I can't expose. So in the future or now, you can stack the two. You can off the same hectare of land get multiple income sources. Yeah,
Correct.
So you can get standing trees, the carbon of that, the soil carbon plus biodiversity.
The ones that are already grown in 30 years. In our calculator, Malcolm, 30-year-old trees were not rated very high, were they? Like that.
Where's the button?
Yes. You had a question,
Makes no
Mike.
sense.
Christophe, so in 2019 you had 60 breeders. So where you're at now, what's your ceiling of number of breeders you can run on your farm?
Good question again. I'm not finished timeline, but we're probably close to the ceiling without degrading our soil. Our soil is amazing compared to what it was. I should have taken a picture by then, but of course you only realize afterwards and you don't have the before and after. I don't think I could run a lot more. Maybe, certainly not. You know, we're playing with 10. We could push to 70 without safely, maybe, and when my soil improves more, my pasture improves more, maybe a little bit more. If I did fertilize, I could go a little bit more, but I'm purposefully low input. Because remember, all that started with drought as well. And the purpose is to keeping to 60 makes me safe that in drought, my soil would be good enough to be able to maintain that without having to destock and not lose too much money. Because even though it was not done with drought in mind all the time, it was still triggered by drought. And my objective is to be low input so that I don't have the financial risk in drought. Because I'm basically spending nothing in fertilizer, nothing. So if I did fertilize, I could push it, but then that would sort of destroy my objective of being completely self-sufficient and sustainable.
That's real discipline, isn't it, to do that?
So what did you do, what were your things, what was your
Did that answer your question? So I'm at 60 and I probably wouldn't be able to push it much further.
I suppose, Christophe, there's probably a few of us in the room, I hope it's not just me, but we, as farmers, we have a mindset to increase production, to reduce our cost of production. And this is like a different religion where you're saying, well, I'm going to cap my production and find an income stream somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's just, there's cause and effect, and there's lots of things that are going to affect districts and communities in time where we're producing less.
Yeah, and
we're producing less, and there's less economy.
Yeah. And I'll come back to you because you had a question, but it turns out that our calving percentage when we did that went up from about 70 to 75%. Hard to say because we didn't have the data at the time. We only started measuring things when we were going through that, to close to 90 now. So that increase almost, and given that backgrounding has a margin, that increase in our breeding productivity almost makes up for the loss of the backgrounding business. And if you add the carbon and the biodiversity dollars to it, we're actually making not a fortune, especially given our scale, but we're making pretty much the same amount of money that we used to. So you're right, it's a completely different model, and we agonized in those years to say, is it going to work? No idea. And it worked for us. No idea if it works in any circumstances, because and the last thing is now we're looking at when I said we've got about 750 hectares, about only 120 of that are cleared, which is why we never went into planting, because every pasture hectare that we've got is precious, but we've got loads of timber, right? Most of it is blue, so we couldn't clear it anyway, but we're going into native forestry management to be able to make that timber harvestable, because at the moment it's just bush. So we're going to start doing some silviculture on that, so that the timber becomes actually harvestable and valuable. So that's another use of an asset that we had, which we pretty much, there's a 250 hectare paddock full of timber that we just disregarded, never looked at it. And only through that process we said, well, you know, what other alternative revenue can we have? Well, we're going to manage that timber so that it produces a regular source of income for us. So you're absolutely right. It was a complete change of model to a model which is lower production, but still profitable, and having as many alternative sources of income that we could find. Yes.
So is it harvestable timber? Is that milling, chips, hardwood, a mixture of
Hardwood.
hardwood milling?
Hardwood milling. Because we're lucky. We've got huge stands of spotted guns and unfortunately lots of bloodwoods as well.
Another way of looking at it, Mark, is it is still productive. It's just producing different stuff. It's what's happened is the biodiversity is in there, and it's a more diverse enterprise. It's got more diverse enterprises with multiple productivities coming out of multiple different streams.
Overgrazing.
And less outputs, and,
Sorry,
and less money on external pressures from the
Yes.
from money out.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's
Inputs
we're not, absolutely not sure whether it will work at all, and is it going to work long? Because that carbon is going to exhaust. We're not going to,
Yes.
so that's not long term. We've probably got 10, 15 years ahead of us.
Yeah.
And after that carbon revenue will exhaust, which is what we want to start with timber revenue to supplement that when it finally stops. So sorry, you had a question.
You just talked about improving your soil and how you're starting before the project. What sort of things are you doing, to do that? What are your strategies that are doing that? What are you doing differently than what you were doing before, apart from the destocking?
That was a big part of it, but rotational grazing.
Oh yeah.
Much stricter on rotation. Even though the paddock looks nice, if it hasn't rested for 3 months, we're not putting cattle there. If the paddock grain becomes too hard for them, we're still not putting them in the next rotation paddock. We've got us like a buffer paddock, which is timbered, but we open that up when they really need to before we open the rest. But we're really just about letting that pasture rest for 3 months.
60 head,
Yeah.
and I know it's a different climate, and 100, you say 200 acres of farmed land that you could
Pasture about 120.
So, how does that work that you allow 3? Is that you use the bush blocks to mitigate the time? Because like 3 months, I can imagine 60 head in a paddock, would decimate it whilst they're waiting for that one to be 3.
No.
Do you supplement beef as well?
No supplements. Well, supplements in winter for phosphorus, because our country's.
So how big are your paddocks? What sort of area, are you?
We've got 4 paddocks out of 120 hectares, so.
Right. So they're just big paddocks and they just...
It's about not overgrazing, isn't it? And the recovery.
Yeah. But I would.
How do you
Yeah.
keep those head in 4 paddocks and not overgraze and waiting for the others to be spread out?
There's enough pasture there.
So 3 months milling.
Yeah.
What sort of rainfall?
About 1100.
Okay.
That's a difference. Yes. But I would love to have smaller paddocks, because what happens, of course, they always graze the same bloody areas.
Yeah.
So I would love to fence them off sometimes. And the only thing that's holding me from doing that is the cost of water.
Yeah.
Bringing water, irrigation to it. No, not buying water. We've got enough water, but just establishing troughs and pumps and stuff. That's the only thing. Other than that, I'd subdivide. I'd subdivide even smaller to force them. And with doing that, I probably could go a little bit better, because at the moment they're still not utilising fully their paddocks when they're in.
So that's 60 months and then the babies.
And the babies.
So it really is 100 and something.
Yeah, adult equivalent, I'll cover about roughly 100 adult equivalents. But you said it exactly. It was a complete change in philosophy for us to go from A to Z.
Christophe, related to that change of philosophy, with what we're doing at following similar paths on our property. So we've destocked and now we're deciding, how to build the numbers. So we're probably at your 2018 stage of your project now. The thing that we've run into is from the point of view of where we're wanting to take our farm, our banks, so our finance providers, are really quite we've run into brick walls because they're saying, well, you know, why aren't this farm's not running at full productivity? It's not, you know, why have you only got that many head and can't you bump up your sheep numbers and you should have better land numbers and whatever. So while we're in that transition period to working towards setting up our natural capital programs, it's actually really tricky, and we've had some really tricky conversations. And we had to say and it was rural bank, which is surprising, we had to say to them, aren't you going to be wanting farms like us on your books in the next 5 to 10 years to reducing your liability? Why are you pushing us out the door?
Correct. Our neighbours who have done the same, they've got an AC project and a SOC project. They're more hesitant towards the low input thing than they're not there yet. They don't want to destock. But anyway, they actually had to refinance their loan to be able to do that. So the bank didn't want to lend them any more money, so they had to find a way of refinancing by using another property to make their land debt free before they could actually do that. Yes.